Hello and welcome back to day 8 of our series of 100 days of 1%. 100 days of tiny incremental improvements that add together for a much more impressive result than you would think tiny little changes would make. I'm Dr. Brenna Murphy. I'm the Lazy Naturopath, and like always, I'm here to share with you my tips, tricks, hacks, and shortcuts so you can put in a moderate amount of effort and get amazing results so you can live your best life every single day. Now, over the last few days, we've been talking about doing the right steps in the right order. What tiny changes you want to focus on first, so each change becomes easier and easier, and each change has a bigger and bigger result. Now, this system, tentatively or temporarily called from blah to bodacious, starts with pooping power. We talked about that a couple days ago. Your digestive tract, your gut health is the core of your health, and so we really need to get that flowing and functional to let everything else move much more quickly and much more easily. Now, once we have your digestive tract moving and absorbing, step 2 is the not deep detox. And this is, again, that kind of mid-range cleanse where we're not going super deep into the attics and the cupboard under the stairs, but we're going a little deeper than your kind of monthly deeper clean. So we're kind of cleaning out the refrigerator, or maybe, tidying up the garage, kind of hitting some of those areas that can be ignored, but we don't have to do a big trip to Goodwill or hire a dumpster. So once we have gotten you pooping, we've sort of done enough cleaning that we're not going to trip over our own feet and trying to make further progress, then we can really work on fine-tuning that stress, sugar, speed trio of your adrenals, pancreas, and thyroid. And that is delicate to balance, very possible to balance, but we really want to make sure we can focus on that and not have it be unbalanced again by, not being able to poop or having some environmental toxins easily stirred up. Now, once we get your sugar, stress, speed system in balance and your metabolism working at its optimal pace, now we can move to a more difficult stage, firefighting. Now, so many people walk around with chronic inflammation, kind of this low-grade background smolder. In fact, 90% of major illnesses are caused by chronic inflammation, even including things like heart disease and cancer. And so this is a little more work to clear up, but it's really, really crucial to address thoroughly and effectively, not just for how you feel right now, but how you're going to feel 10, 15, 20 years from now, and how well you're going to live your life for that 10, 15, 20 years. So with firefighting, just like actual firefighting, step 1 is we need to identify where the fire is coming from. And so some really common areas are foods. You can have the type of immune reaction to food that is keeping you at a chronic smolder because your body thinks it's always fighting off a bacteria or virus. And I'm going to take a much deeper dive into this in a future video. But you might have heard of this referred to as a food allergy. It's more technically a food hypersensitivity. But foods can be and are a very, very common cause of low-grade chronic inflammation. Beyond foods, there is an imbalance of good and bad bacteria, something we call dysbiosis. And that can be the overgrowth of a pathogenic problematic bacteria. It can be an undergrowth of the good stuff, so just not having enough good stuff, or a mix of the two. Now, your bacterial balance in your colon is kind of like your lawn, or even better, a prairie grassland out in the west part of America. So a really, really healthy bacterial balance in our gut looks like a beautiful prairie with some tall grasses, some wildflowers, some low-growing grasses, maybe even some shrubs. But this beautiful array of different plants that all fill in and create a really, really thick carpet of active growth. Now, in a dysbiotic system, that can be where there are big patches of dirt and nothing's growing at all. That can be where that beautiful prairie has been taken over by kudzu and all you see is this crazy vine that's taking over the entire world, and there's a very significant lack of diversity. It can also be a nice green lawn where you only have one type of grass growing, and it's beautiful and it's thick, but there's no diversity there. All of those imbalances, while they're not going to kill you, really do cause lots of immediate and downstream difficulties in, both your gut health, even mood, and really critically inflammation. And so if there's an imbalance there, it's really critical to, again, identify it and restore balance as best we can and as quickly as we can. And again, that's something that I will take a much deeper dive into in a future video, because that's a deep dive subject. But we've talked about food being an issue. We've talked about bacteria and yeast being an issue. We can also have environmental toxicants being an issue. And phase 2 was the not deep dive cleanse. If environmental toxicants are an issue or suspected to be an issue, this is where we do take you through a deep dive cleanse. This is where we are going to the attic. We are going to that cupboard under the stairs. We're going into that funky closet in the back of your basement that nobody's looked at in 50 years and cleaning that out. But we're doing it in a really specific, careful, controlled way, because what we don't want to do, which would actually make you sicker, is taking the junk from the attic, taking the junk from your junk drawer, taking the stuff from your cupboard under the stairs, taking the stuff from that crazy, scary closet, and dumping it all into your living room, and then not knowing what to do with it there. Because now we've actually made you less healthy, we've made your life more problematic. So that type of deep detox needs to be done in a very careful manner, very controlled and very well supported. And not everybody needs that. Sometimes we'll do a slightly deep detox, but that is a very, very common cause and a very common location of fire. All right, so once we have identified the source of the fire and what's fueling the fire, the next step is obvious. We take that fuel away, whether that's removing foods that are triggering hypersensitivities, that is killing off pathogenic or potentially pathogenic bacteria, reseeding good bacteria, doing a deep dive cleanse and really cleaning out environmental toxicants, making sure there's plenty of nutrients, whatever it is. We want to starve the fire, and then we want to really actively extinguish the fire. And we can do that through things like curcumin that blocks something called the no-oh-no cycle, which again, come back later, that one's really complex. We're probably going to deal with that somewhere in the 90s. Like, you're not going to hear about that again for a while, but it is kind of that background biochemistry of why we catch on fire, and once we catch on fire, why we stay caught on fire. But we do have nutraceuticals and herbs and nutrients and ways that we can stop the fire from happening, in addition to removing the fuel. And then this is the really key part, and this is a huge difference between the naturopathic approach to health issues and the conventional approach to health issues, because we just have more tools in this area. This is where one of our expertises lies, is we are going to rebuild and restore and strengthen and even improve the environment where the fire happened. Because fire doesn't happen just because. Just think about it. You'll drive down the highway and you'll see a burnt patch of grass where somebody threw a cigarette out the window, or a car sparked and caught the grass on fire. But if that environment is lush and that grass is green and the soil is wet, that fire puts itself out. So we want to really focus in on rebuilding your environment. And that kind of almost goes through the same steps we've already gone through, just with a firefighting focus, where we go back to the gut and really heal and repair and restore gut integrity. We work with the liver to really make sure that liver is not only caught up cleaning out the environmental toxicants, but it really optimized and empowered to handle the next round of environmental toxicants. We're looking at that stress, sugar, speed combination as well, to make sure that this process of firefighting hasn't unbalanced the three musketeers of metabolism, and they are ready to actually rev up our body against these onslaughts. And then we're going to move into And then we are going to move into actually building a healthy fire, restoring your spark, because we need fire to some extent. We just want it to be in a controlled manner. So think about, again, it's kind of like real life. If we didn't have any fire, we would all freeze to death. We wouldn't even be in existence on this planet anymore. We need fire, whether it's fire in a fireplace or the heater, but what we don't need is our house on fire. So as we put it all the way out, then we want to turn it back on just a little bit with really, really tight controls over how much that fire burns. And we do that by strengthening and balancing and fine-tuning the immune response, by making sure that certain cells aren't over-irritable and overreactive, but making sure that all of your body has the nutrients it needs to react. And the final step is to actually restart the spark, because we do need fire in the body, just not out of control fire. It's kind of like in the real world. We need fire in the world. We use fire to keep ourselves warm. Whether it's from a fireplace or a more modern electric heater, we need that warmth. We need fire for our cars to run. You know, there are controlled sparks that make our engine turn over and turn gas into energy. Or even an electric car that's using electrical fire, but again, we're using spark, more literally in that case, to create energy. But we want that fire to be controlled and controllable. And that's where we come in with nutrients and, again, herbs and amino acids to strengthen and tune the immune system so it's not underreacting and letting us get sick, but it's not also overreacting and causing destruction as it's trying to fight something off. And this process, like I said, can be more complicated. It can be longer, and it's not as dramatic of a payoff as the stress, sugar, speed area, but this is where the long-term payoff happens. Again, and it's somewhat immediate, and it's decades out, all of the same work. And that's really cool. And that's, again, the thing that I love about the medicine I practice, because we are helping people get healthier and healthier and healthier. It's not just throw one drug at it and throw two drugs at it and more medications, just trying to keep it under control, kind of like just constantly using a fire extinguisher. Fire extinguishers have their place. I'm not against the use of fire extinguishers, like, you know, biologic agents, Tylenol. Sometimes that is the best move. That is the right move for the moment. But what we don't want, what I don't want for you, is that the only tool you have is a fire extinguisher. When instead, we can actually use some grass seed to get you to the same and, in fact, a better place. All right, so that is phase 4. Next week, no, actually tomorrow, next video, we're gonna go into phase 5, balance. And this is where, now that the fire is out or controlled, your sugar stress store system is tuned, you've detoxed, whether it's tiny, medium, or huge, and you're pooping, we can really come in and start to put the icing on the cake. We can start to really fine-tune your reproductive hormone levels. If they even need it, they might have corrected themselves if they had an issue in the first place. But if they do, you can come in very specifically and optimize them where they're deficient, calm them down where they're excessive, balance them where they're discordant, and bring you back into a rhythm and vitality that's going to help you realize your most amazing, best life feelings. So that is tomorrow's conversation, and I will see you then. I'm Dr. Brenna Murphy. I'm a lazy naturopath, and I will be back tomorrow.